The story of John Paul Miller and the passing of his wife Mica becomes more strange every single day. And when it's as complicated as this one, that means there's more than one player in the game. Introducing Tricia Ross, the right hand of John Paul Miller. If it involves John Paul and Solid Rock Church, then it involves Tricia Ross.
So you mean that I can use my debit card, or I can use my Visa, or even my MasterCard?
From who's on the worship team, to contracts, and according to some sources, some of the financials of Solid Rock Church, Tricia Ross has been a part of Solid Rock for over 15 years. And many say she knows just as much as John Paul Miller.
I'm about to myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Remember, according to police, on the afternoon of April 27th, 2024, Mica Miller, the wife of Pastor John Paul Miller, took her own life in a North Carolina state park. Later that evening, John Paul Miller found out about his wife's death via a phone call from authorities in North Carolina. Tricia Ross immediately rushed to John Paul's house. She was one of 5 people there, listening in to the phone call from authorities as they described the scene, specifically the crime scene. Now, I call it a crime scene because with every agency I've ever dealt with, if it involves a death, it's considered a crime until a proper investigation is done. But on this night, authorities from Robeson County were giving out details of that scene to complete strangers they had never met before. And according to multiple sources, Tricia Ross allegedly began talking quickly. She began giving details to other people before John Paul Miller even met with authorities.
So right now, we're all going to lift his arms up, and if everybody could lift your arms in support of our pastor.
Tricia Ross knows a lot. She's part of John Paul's inner circle. Take this for example. Yesterday, John Paul Miller released this information about March 11th.
On March 11th, remember that date because you super sleuths out there are going to need to know that date for the future. But on March 11th, something happened that kind of forever changed the course of our lives.
According to sources, John Paul Miller's private investigator was allegedly tracking Mica that day. When the investigator found Mica, he allegedly called John Paul, and John Paul did not like what he had to hear. But according to reports and messages provided to the FBI, Tricia Ross allegedly knew that the private investigator was tracking Mica also. Tricia Ross allegedly knew about the phone call that the private investigator had with John Paul Miller. And Tricia Ross allegedly knew John Paul Miller did not like what he heard, and he went into a rage. Hours after the events of March 11th, Mica Miller called police, reporting that her tires were slashed.
When she went to Africa this time, she just fell in love. That was her heart.
Despite saying such nice things about Mica in a local news interview just days after her death, Tricia Ross has not always been kind to Mica's family. Back in 2023, she sent this cease and desist message to the family of Mica Miller, saying that if they don't stop saying bad things about John Paul Miller and Solid Rock Church, they would seek financial damages. Just weeks after that message was sent, Mica left John Paul Miller to go stay with her sister in Kansas. But according to multiple sources, Tricia Ross would allegedly reach out to Mica every time she left John Paul, telling her to be a good, godly wife and to return to her husband. But the cease and desist letter wasn't the only negative thing Tricia has sent the family of Mica Miller. Just days after that interview where she said all these nice things about Mica, she also sent a message to the Francis family. Tricia Ross blamed the Francis family for all the problems in her life. She also said that everything John Paul Miller was accused of was false, with no proof.
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours.
But once John Paul Miller's past sins became public, with proof, Tricia Ross went on the attack, going after complete strangers from the internet.
Okay, coward. If you want to talk to me, I'll be happy to talk to you in person. So go with your threats and whatever else you need to do. But I am not fearful of anyone, and don't bring my family into anything.
So why is Tricia Ross so dedicated to John Paul Miller and Solid Rock Church? Well, many say it's because of her husband, who died of cancer several years ago. To this day, John Paul Miller and Solid Rock Church calls her husband Superman. And Tricia Ross has said that the church saved her when she lost her husband. Or is her unwavering love for the church a financial one? According to multiple sources, John Paul Miller and Solid Rock Church allegedly pay for Tricia Ross's personal bills. But as a result of standing by John Paul Miller, it seems Tricia Ross's family has severed ties with her. According to multiple Facebook posts by the family, seems Tricia Ross is not even allowed to see her grandchildren.
Well, we have a situation, folks. Under her previous name, Tricia Island, and she had charges of breach of trust with fraudulent intent, value at $5,000 or more.
And it seems the burdens of Tricia Ross's life is affecting her. A few weeks ago, she sent this text message suggesting that she was going to end her life. As a result, a wellness check was requested by those who were concerned for her safety. And not long ago, Tricia Ross was seen sitting on the beach all by herself. And what's interesting about this beach, it's the same beach where Mica Miller found her tires slashed. And now there's this. According to multiple sources, the FBI is not only very interested in John Paul Miller, but they're very interested in Tricia Ross also. Considering Tricia Ross has her own criminal past for stealing money, it makes sense as to why the FBI may be looking into her. But how much will they find when it comes to her involvement with John Paul Miller and the inner workings of Solid Rock Church?
But Elisha was saying to him, I am loyal to you when it's easy, and I'm loyal to you when it's tough. I'm loyal to you through thick and thin. I'm loyal to you in the good times when everybody's shouting your praises because you're performing all these miracles, and I'm loyal to you in the bad times when you're old and near death. I'm going to stick to you because this is part of my destiny.
I think the bigger question is this. Will Tricia Ross go down with the ship? Will she sacrifice her family to support John Paul Miller? Or will she work with federal authorities when they come knocking on her door?